1 mana left. It's time for an update to Crucible League. So the plan going in was to play Mana Bond Mjolnir to start the league, because that is a build that really doesn't take that much to get going. Outside of the first day or two with higher Indigon prices, for like 1 to 2 divines, you can put it together and start blasting, which is exactly what I did to league start. And I started gathering my mana gear, growing my character's power, all with the plan that at about the 2 to 3 week mark, I would re-roll to Manaforged Arrows. This league, unfortunately, there was a bug with Manaforged Arrows that lasted for over 2 weeks, where Mirage Archer would not fire correctly while linked to Manaforged Arrows. This is an interaction that worked correctly last league, but for the first 17 days of this league, it did not work. So, did I say Crucible? Okay. It's Trial of the Ancestors. I don't do the league mechanic, whatever. Anyways, so this league I played Manaforged. I've switched now to Manaforged Arrows, and I had a bit of a moment yesterday that I thought I'd share here where we're at to kind of illustrate why it's time to make this video. Let's just catch up here real quick. So that ring, if you're not, this is not funny money. This is real. Sold to the obvious only person who was gonna buy the ring. Probably it was either gonna be him or Belton. And yeah, this isn't one of those like made up prices where I say, oh, this is worth 20 mirrors and then it's gonna rot in your stash forever. Nope. This sold in 30 minutes for 4 mirrors. But my budget for the build has went up significantly in the last 24 hours. So this is a pretty good time to get caught up because the build's about to change in big ways. So instead, I thought right now I'd give you an update to where I got with the character and kind of how I played it pre-Mage Blood. So I'm just going to give you the disclaimer right here. If you're not already aware, this is not a starter build. If you didn't hear me, this is not a starter build. Just one more time if you didn't get it the first two. This is not a starter build. Alright. So this is the pre-Mage Blood setup that I kind of talked about in the last video, and this is how I've executed it, how it plays right now. And these are going to be some of the tips you can do to play it pre-Mage Blood. Some of the new tattoo interactions, how you get some of the spend and attack speed sorted out. So I'll just kind of go through maybe things that weren't gone over in the first video. Then I'll kind of do a recap summary of what the build's doing in the first place, and then I'll show you some map gameplay. So what's the requirements to go Manaforged Arrows? It really comes down to spend. You need to get your spend to a certain amount. To do that, unlike Mjolnir, you want to have a high Indigon. And then you're going to want to get a pretty high attacks per second. Now, from there, you really want to just get some stats for... There's 3 combinations of quiver weapon that you can get. They all work, but for different ways. The rest of the gear is pretty dang similar to what you'd run for Mana Bond, except maybe adding an unset ring. But let's just go over weapons first and some of the tools I used this league. So if you looked at Draybon last league, starting off, I ended up doing a thicket bow with 2 additional projectiles and a poised prism. This is the first of the 3 options. So this is a good way to abuse the fact that all of your damage is coming from anomalous mana leech. So adding quality here, you could get even more quality with a synth bow, is just a pretty fat more damage multiplier on top of also potentially more triggers with the alt quality Manaforged Arrows. And then you get the flat damage from poise along with some resistances, and it's kind of nice overall. The The big advantage to this, though, is when you have like a high tier attack speed. If you look at the APS on this bow, because it's a thicket, because it's got attack speed enchant, and because it's got attack speed suffix, it is 1.89 base attack speed. This pretty much solves all your attack speed issues. If you just have a 1.89 base bow, you will have enough APS. Everything else is easy. So that's the huge advantage of the rare bow. It's a little harder to craft because you need a fractured +2 arrows to get to this point. Now that's going to be like 30 divines to start. So that's the unfortunate part. The good news is you're not as dependent on the +1 arrow quiver, but even this poised prism with +1 arrows is like 8 divines. So okay, let's say you craft it for 10, you get the quiver for 8. That's a 48 divine combo. Once again, this is not a starter build, but this is the way that Draybon started the build, and it was a really easy way to get attack speed breakpoints for what I had was a 59 into God, and this was enough. Now, the thing is, I already had Mage Blood at this point, though, and in the video I kind of talked about getting enough attack speed without Mage Blood and how I was kind of theory crafting on doing that. So, pre-Mage Blood, though, you don't have the resistances solved. So, the second option I'm going for is the possibly easier option to just make everything work pre-Mage Blood, and that's to have a Widow Hail plus a Poised Prism. So you're going to get the +1 arrow enchant. You don't need the suppression. This is just bonus. And that with Widow Hail is going to give you +3 arrows. Then, there's no Crucible trees this league, even though I just said we're in Crucible League 8 minutes ago. There's +1 arrow on the bow. So, because the bow is actually pretty cheap unique, it's not too hard to get a +1 arrow corrupt. So between the two of these, that's +4. That's already going to put you to 5 arrows on Storm Rain, which is pretty. That's like enough. You can go if you can get a 6 through other means, go for it. But for now, that's enough. The reason this is a big deal pre-Mage Blood is if you look at the resistances on this quiver and take them times 3.5, this basically is giving you like 80 all res. Like, this is solving my resistances. My res is 105, 104, 89. When I take the quiver off, I am just dead. This is all of my resistance right here. So, like, this is a whole Mage Blood worth of resistances. That's why it's kind of nice to do this. The problem with this combo, the one weakness it has, is the attack speed situation is very bad. Because the base on Widow Hail is 1.4 APS. You get no additional attack speed from the Poised Prism. So to make this setup work, even though it's got everything else covered, you need attack speed. So here's some ways to get attack speed. The first you can do is just try to get your jewels to all have some form of attack speed. Regular jewels can get 6 to 8% on bows. Abyss jewels can get 4 to 6 attack speed, as well as 6 to 8 if you've crit recently, if you have crit jewels already. Even if you're not, you'll have enough crit to trigger this all the time. So just maximizing Jewel's attack speed. The next combo, though, is this Impossible Escape down here, or Unnatural Instinct. Stat-wise, I didn't actually think this would be that good, but look right down there at the bottom, plus 68 Strength. Because we're taking all of these small nodes that are 4 Strength because they're in range of the Lethal Pride over here, it's giving me a ton of Strength, which makes all the stats kind of worth it. This total combo's 5 points for all these stats. The strength is already, the strength, dex, and int is already worth like 3 talent points. The grand total here between this is 14 move speed and 21 attack speed. 14 move speed and 21 attack speed for this situation is definitely worth 2 talent points. And then every other stat on here is just free. So this is a pretty good combo when you need attack speed. There's a couple other things you can do. This league, there's a 30 dex tattoo for Onslaught. That's not what I'm using anymore, but I was using that for the better part of this league so far. It's not Onslaught on kill either. It's Onslaught on hit, so you can pretty reliably always have it up. So between the Onslaught tattoo, a flask with 17 attack speed, the 21% down here, and some 8% on jewels, and then just action speed on boots, you can kind of get to acceptable levels of attack speed with Widow Hail. I would say everything I listed is kind of the bare minimum for it to feel good. And that is going to be your setup for the AoE setup. and then you have blast rain faster attacks for single target. The other thing that's new this league is there's return projectiles support. So if you see me shoot my lightning arrow here, you're going to see some of them actually come back through me and go the other way. This is going to give a pretty good amount of clear, and it's going to be a lot of hits to get those instant leeches. So this is a really good new gem, even though it's not a ton of damage like the old Venging Cascade. We don't necessarily care about the damage here. We just care about the hits, because on tier 16 maps, we're really just caring about the, like, we'll kill everything anyways. And for harder content like Deep Delve maybe, you just want hits for leech, because then Stormbrand's going to kill everything with more mana throughput. The third setup I haven't got to yet, but I will be aiming to go for, is basically after Mage Blood, you drop Poise because you no longer need the resistances, and you go for a Synth Quiver more in line with what Draybon did at the end of last league. All the crazy nutty clips I did were with this quiver with a Widow Hail. This is like the ultimate endgame. I'll throw honorable mention to the... It's kind of the same as option 1, but it's potentially a different best in slot with the like quality synth bow, which would have been my setup I showed with the Thicket bow previously, but with a bunch of quality synth implicits. That can make the damage like double what I had in that setup, which is probably competitive to the Widow Hail setup, but it's pretty specific bow you'll need. So, to be fair, it's a pretty specific quiver you'll need too, but anyways. Last thing I'm going to go over is the tattoos. So this build doesn't actually have as much tattoo interaction as most builds, but there's a few ones we can use. So the first thing we can do is we can squeeze out a little bit of extra mana in Healthy Mind by getting the Oak 2% life tattoos. Since these are in range of Healthy Mind, they become 4% mana. This isn't insane, but 4% mana is a little bit better than 10 int, because like a 12 mana node, typically I'll take ahead of a 30 int node, but it's not that much better. The second one is the life res efficiency jewels. So in the past, we've had to sit here and juggle with these 10% res efficiency rings or like 90% multiplier indigons, and it's a bunch of requirement for like corrupt jewels and high level anomalous arrogance, and it's really hard to get the life res to 120%. But these make it really easy, just slapping a few of these on to get your life res requirement. I'll do the mana tattoos last. This is kind of a bonus one, but I did just for the extra flex. I dropped the 2 talent points for Zealot's Oath, and I picked up the cooler Zealot's Oath for +1 talent point. The last one I'm going to go over is maybe the most impactful, but these were added only about a week ago. Journey Tattoo of the Mind gives +30 maximum mana per allocated duplicate mind tattoo. So anytime we can get a 30 dex node, it's the grand spectrum effect, where 1 gives 30, 2 gives 60 each, so 120, 3 gives 90 times 3, which is 270, and 4 gives 480. It's 120 times 4. So the way you can actually do this is you can take these dex ones by default because of your pathing. You can come over here and grab this third one. You can even get the int node as a filler. And then you can actually anoint for the bottom one. And you might think that's not worth it to do, but that bottom one is giving me 1,500 mana right now, which since there's triple dip on Manaforged, that's like over 20% more damage. The reason this one is 1,500 total mana is because you go from 270 to 480, so it's plus 210 flat, that fourth one. The grand spectrum scaling is very strong on this effect, so each additional one is worth like as much as all the previous ones combined. So you can do this with the Anoint to get all 4 of the dex ones for 480 flat mana. I would say the Sovereignty or Proficiency is slightly better than Primal Spirit, but if you're a tryhard, you can get both. Not required though, but I do think the Proficiency with 4 of those is slightly better than Primal Spirit. But okay, back to quick summary. We need to get our spend high enough to kind of just stay maxed out on Ingon stacks. Hopefully I have enough attack speed. I'll show you kind of how this looks like in a map maybe. And then I'll also briefly go over what I'm doing for Atlas this league. So the 30-second Atlas summary is I'm doing Delirium with Shrines and Delve and some Uber bosses. That's not too different than what I normally do, but what I'm doing in this league is I'm boss rushing. So there's this new Maven No Destructive play, which unfortunately you have to wait at the start of the fight for like 3 seconds, but if you don't insta-kill the boss and remember to wait, she'll summon 1 to 3 additional bosses, and these all get all the benefits of the final boss of the map. So all these chances to drop Elder and Guardian maps, I take all of them. And I probably average 1 Guardian map per map boss. Like, I can, like, almost full sustain just purely... Like, some maps I'll get 4 Guardian maps off the boss. So what you'll see here isn't as fast as the Mage Blood gameplay, but, like, that's not bad. Like, when you're comparing something to Mage Blood gameplay for a non-Mage Blood build, that is not bad at all. I mean, technically I could have gone faster if I put in, like, a Sulfite mission because, you know, I have 45 move speed if I do Nico. But, on this one, I'm going to do maybe a little bit extra map. I'm pretty much just going to rush the boss and just show you kind of the effect of the boss rush talent. It's honestly like 20 to 30 chaos every map boss on average, just in Guardian drops. The only downside, like I said, is you have to wait for about 3 seconds at the start. So you're going to chill here, let Maven say fight, 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 and then you're going to go, and then you're going to kill them. Look at that. There's 1 Guardian map. Like I said, I average about 1. And that's, you really can just rush boss and get Guardian maps. You don't have to do anything too crazy. Oh, look, a second Guardian map. My bad. Okay, so 2 Guardian maps in like 60 seconds. And I pretty much, like I said, full sustain Guardian. I'll pop in 1 more strand here just to kind of finish up with a good, hopefully a fast map. If you're anywhere close to, like, by the way, I have pretty much every league mechanic blocked besides Delirium, so I basically guarantee get Delirium every map. It's not, like, that lucky for me. It's probably 70% chance of just getting a Delirium mirror by blocking everything else besides Delirium. But like I was saying, if you have a build that can get, like, kind of close to Mage Blood speed without Mage Blood, that's a pretty good start. Speaking of Mage Blood, nope. And, you know, if you... I take Shrine, so if you get, like, the Swiftness Shrine and stuff, you can really start blazing, but... I think I'm, with this setup, honestly averaging, like, 40 to 60 chaos per map. Probably 20 to 30 from Delirium, 20 to 30 from Guardians, and then, like, 10 to 20 just for miscellaneous drops. Like, I think I legit am averaging, like, 60 seed per map. I wasn't really making good income until I started doing this. Oh, I do also not block Breach, just because, like, I'll have a pretty juiced Delirium map that'll just get a Breach, and it'll give me, like, +1 layer. So I think that's worth it, because on some of these where I get a Breach too, I can get, like, 150 Splinters, which is 30 chaos of just Splinters. So that's not too bad. We'll see if I can get a nice 150 Splinter map here. Maybe there's a few more monsters over here that spawn. The return projectiles does feel nice. It's not like delve damage, but for mapping, it's just good clear. And as I scale the build a little more, it's going to get more kind of one-shotty, where just extra proj is just going to feel even better. I'll also later, after I get the Synth Quiver swap, I'll double my number of projectiles, because I'll go from 5 lightning arrows to 10. So it's going to get a lot more ridiculous than this. But, you know, let's see if I can get 150 there. Just from Alchem Go, no Delirium Orbs, just... Okay, 77. I really oversold that. But I've got like 160, 170 on a lot of maps. I'm probably on a regular run average like 120. That was pretty low, to be honest. But, you know, I got 3 Guardian maps from 2 pretty fast maps. So that's kind of my Atlas strategy. But that's what the build looks like right now with no Mage Blood. I'm going to ride off into the sunset with this Eldritch Horror. And you're going to end up seeing a Manaforged Arrow build stronger than Draybond in about 2 weeks. So it's time for me to spend some of these. But I thought I'd give an update on what it looked like up until that point. I'll see you guys